Hello there, everybody. Welcome to this Sepsis Survivors. This is part 3.
Part 3?
Yes. And this is, if you remember, part 1 was kind of when it first happened in the hospital and all that, kind of beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And then part 2 is in the hospital and all that. And now part 3 is where she actually leaves the hospital, but not for home. And this part of it, we're going to talk more about the rehabilitation part of it. And Lisa's starting to getting some of her memory and things like this back, but we'll get into that. And up until the time where she's just about ready to go home. So at this point, you've already been, in the hospital a month?
Been in the hospital a month, and now
Roughly.
we are being told that I'm going to go to a rehab. Mike was really trying to get me into this place called Mary Free Bed, which is a huge place here in where we live at, and they take care of all kinds of brain injured to stroke victims to
Massively injured
people. I had a cousin go there that was paralyzed from the chest down, the whole 9 yards. So to get in there is a big deal, and Mike was pushing for that.
Yeah, it was even after about a week and a half in the hospital, they were telling me that when she does come out of this, there's like a social worker that comes around and kind of plans these things. Excuse me. And she and he was telling me that she's going to need rehabilitation after this. My mind was kind of not all there then. I mean, I realized this because he was telling me this, and I was trying to work on this. But at the same time, I just want her to still pull out of this and be alive. I wasn't thinking that step forward. But the hospital was, thankfully. And they started trying to get into places like, Mary Free Bed. You just don't, just go there. I mean, they don't have beds open. I mean,
right.
It's a facility that's worldwide renowned facility, and you just don't get in there unless something opens up. It's not real.
And there was no way that I was coming home.
No.
Mike could not have cared for me.
No, it would have been like a old folks home type thing, or there's another one, Kent Community or something like that here that does the same thing, but not like they do. As far as reputation-wise went. From there, honey, do you remember even leaving the hospital? Do you remember going to this place?
I vaguely remember leaving the hospital. I remember going to I had to ride an ambulance. It's called an ambucab. To go from one hospital to the next, because it's not like I could get into a car, because that's something that you learn when you go to Mary Free Bed. They teach you how to get out of bed, in and out of cars. It's an occupational therapist job to do that. Anyways, what I do remember is I was exhausted, completely and utterly exhausted. I hurt everywhere. My whole body just ached so bad, and I couldn't understand why I hurt so much. I mean, I knew that, picture this. Here I am. And again, I'm not telling you this to feel sorry for me. I'm just trying to get a grasp of what has happened. I have a port in my chest. I have a tracheotomy. I have a colostomy. I have 2 drainage tubes coming out of my back. I have a wound vac because I'm cut from, basically, I've told you before, I was a huge cut. And I was exhausted. I was completely exhausted.
Right.
And all I wanted to do is sleep. The other part was I had, I guess you'd call it like the room spins. And I was very, very, what's that word I'm looking for? Dizzy.
Yeah. Dizziness and
I couldn't.
It was a little bit like feeling sick, kind of.
It was making me sick, so they got me the drugs that help you. I can't think of the words.
Nausea.
That helps with the nausea and the dizziness. Well, those make you really sleepy. For me, it does, anyways. So probably the minute you get there, they automatically they get you in your room, they get you set up. You start meeting your team, because you have a team of doctors.
Right.
And they automatically want you to start walking. Yeah. I haven't walked in a month.
Yeah, not very little at the hospital did they ever get you up, basically.
They had me go from my room to just outside the door, and I started to go down.
Right, yeah, just the room. And she had a walker, and they would start getting her to sit up in bed and stand up, and I mean, literally from when she says the doors to the door to the room. I mean, we're
Right.
talking 8 steps.
Right.
I mean,
It was incredibly painful. So then
yeah,
I got back to my room and I was just I all I wanted to do was sleep. I was exhausted. So I being where I work at, I overhear these nurses say, if we can't get her going here, we're gonna have to probably put her in a nursing home. And I was like, huh? And I heard them say this. See, if you're a nurse, be careful what you say in front of patients' rooms, even if you think that they don't hear you, because they do.
right. But they might have purposely said just because it's a rehabilitation facility, and if they can't rehab you, then they're going to open up that bed for somebody else that is willing to.
But one of the things that happened there is there was a gal there named Katie, and Katie worked with me at my job. And for a long time, Katie worked at my job and at Mary Freebed. She was a rehab tech. Mm-hmm. And Katie came into my room, this is probably day 4 or 5. And she says, Lisa, she goes, if you don't move your ass, and that's exactly what she said. She goes, they're going to put you in a nursing home. And I was like, no, not for me. So from that day forward, I tried as hard as I could. I still to this day don't understand why it's so painful, but I hurt just from the top of my head to the tops of my feet. I just hurt all over. Mm-hmm. So, that's where Mike, obviously had to go back to work. And so I'm having to do occupational therapy. I've had to do PT, all kinds of things.
Yeah, they're working on just your head too, remembering how to do things, basically.
And they had asked me if I wanted to see talk to a counselor, because I was just a mess. Mm-hmm. I couldn't really cry, and I couldn't really do much, but I was real angry and real frustrated, and I couldn't even lift up my iPad. It was really hard. What were you gonna say?
Well, and you still had your tracheotomy during this time too, and dealing also with the tracheotomy and with the bag.
That was not any fun with that trach.
Yeah, and the trach, I mean, they still, I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but they have to go and clean that out, because you're not able to hack it up really, if you want to.
And if you can't get it out, it just sits there, so they have to call a respiratory therapist to come in.
Yeah.
Several times, and to get that done, it forces you to cough, and it's just the most wicked feeling in the world.
Yeah. She did not like that.
I did not like that at all.
Had to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember a lot of the times in this, and I was still staying there at night with her, sleeping on the couch or whatever it was there, and just like I was in the other hospital. And I remember, was it in the hospital? I don't remember if this was in the hospital or here, where you really couldn't say much, and you threw the pillow at me.
Oh.
There's all these pillows on the floor. I never did wake up.
I couldn't say a whole lot, and I couldn't, even if I tried, I couldn't talk very loud, and so I kind of was like an infant. I had my days and nights mixed up. I wanted to sleep during the day, I wanted to be up all night, and it wasn't my fault. It's just, when you're in a hospital setting, you've got doctors and nurses and housekeeping and this and that, always in your room. They're constantly checking you, and so you don't sleep well.
Yeah, 24 hours a day, pretty much.
So I just was lonely and wanted to see Mike, and he was not waking up. So I threw everything I could possibly get thrown to him. I was throwing tissue boxes and anything I could get my hands to reach to.
Luckily for me, she wasn't very strong, so they didn't go very far. Some of them didn't even make it off the bed, So.
Not at all. And the other thing that bothered me is I wanted to rest, but my mind was just racing and trying to grasp everything that was going on, because I could not figure out how in the world did I get so sick, and why was I in so much pain.
Right. And then you have the whole deal of, not basically missing 30 days of your life. And
it's a weird feeling. The other thing I had was battling is I was dropping weight like crazy. Mm-hmm. I lost probably close to 100 pounds in the hospital, and that's in 2 months' time. Yeah. So Mike was bringing my clothes up, and they were literally just falling off the ground. So he had to go shopping and get some sweatpants that would work, and then he had to get some new tennis shoes that I couldn't I couldn't tie them because I just couldn't do it. So they got these special shoestrings that had an elastic cord to it so that we could tie them that way. But I couldn't do it.
Right.
I couldn't do anything. It was awful. I couldn't put socks on. I couldn't brush my teeth. It was awful.
Yeah, couldn't even do really much of anything. But they worked with you day after day after day after day, and finally you made it. You know, she would make it past the door, and they were like, and once you get out in the hallway, it's a long hallway. They have markings, you know, all along, and they say, hey, let's shoot for this one. You know, let's shoot for this one.
It'd be like 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet,
Yeah.
30 feet, and it was all the way down the line.
Yep, and finally, and they also had a rec room where she did little things on, I don't remember, it was like a little bike or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but different things inside of that room too, into like an exercise type room, but with special equipment. And finally, she, I mean, after weeks, probably a couple weeks, she could make it to the end of the hallway. Again, all with walker. So, plus, because she's got all this stuff that she's
Gotta manage.
managed, and she's also got it's an IV pole, but it was for all of the
Stuff that was going, in my arm and stuff, but I had a port too that they would shoot
Right.
directly.
right. The IV was more of like your heart rate and breathing and things like that. But then finally, she could make it around down the hallway and to the right. There was a little room where I used to go to where you could sit down and eat and things like that. Then microwaves, and they actually had a washer and dryer there. That we could use.
It was cute. One night I wanted Olive Garden really, really bad, and Mike knows all my favorites, and that would be angel hair pasta with Alfredo sauce, and breadsticks and salad. Now I couldn't have the salad. I already knew that because my colostomy bag. They said no. So I'm thinking I'm gonna dive into this food, right? Wrong answer. I ate 2 bites. That's all I could eat.
Yeah, she wasn't into the eating thing as much, but they finally, they taught her how to conserve her energy when she did get home. And they had like a whole kitchen area set up in there. There's like a home kitchen area where they taught you how to make sure things are down to a level so you're not reaching. Make sure you have light things because you couldn't lift up a heavy pan. They just taught you all these different things for when you're rebuilding and all this. Rehabbing that to do when you finally go home, to have it kind of set up. So she did all that, and you did great at therapy, but I mean, you probably think you left too early. Is that right?
I did. I left way too early. I had in my mind that I was going home before Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving is my all-time favorite holiday. I love to be with my children and my husband and my family. And I was hell-bent, bound, and determined that I was going home before Thanksgiving, and I made it happen. I should never have done that because I probably should have been at the hospital at least another month.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't. It was tough, and there was one day that the other part we had on the team was a speech therapist, and I couldn't quite figure out why I had a speech therapist. Oh, and a recreational therapist too. I had a whole team.
I got a whole bunch of people.
And I'll never forget this lady comes in and she's talking. She wasn't loud or anything. I just remember looking at her and I said, can you please shut up? Your voice is annoying me. I can't take it anymore. And she's like, no problem, Lisa. I'll come back and see you tomorrow. I felt so bad. That was probably the first day that I shed some tears. Because I thought, how could I talk to another human being that way? That was so rude of me. So when she came back the next day, I apologized. She said, Lisa, you need not apologize to me. She goes, when we're sick, sometimes certain people's voices just bother you. And that next day, her voice didn't bother me. But that day before, it was like nails on fingernails on a chalkboard. It was just awful.
Yeah, I think she was just not into it that day. She just didn't want to do it.
And there was a few days that they would come for therapy for me, and I would just be like, pass. But I knew you could only do a couple passes, and then I'd be concerned again, and I didn't want to do that. But it was just the pain. I can't explain. The pain was so incredible. I couldn't stand it. And they had me on pain pills, but I'm like, why is this so painful? What happened to me? I didn't understand the full ramifications from sepsis. It's an awful thing to have. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Not at all.
Yeah.
horrible.
And it continues. The pain she still has today afterwards. I mean, we'll talk about that in the next video when she goes home, and kind of that. We'll get into some of that too. But as far as the physical therapy part, she got through it. But we wish she would have stayed there longer instead of trying to get home by then. But you know, by then we were in the hospitals for 2 months, and she just wanted to go home. And I understand that. And I wanted her to go home too, because you know I wanted to go home.
He wanted to sleep in his
You
own
know.
bed, and then it was another probably at least 6 weeks before I even slept in our bed.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't physically manage, because we have a bed that's higher up. I couldn't physically manage to climb up in that bed. It was just terrible.
Right.
And so when I did come home, and unfortunately, I think I came home on a Wednesday before Thanksgiving, was it?
Something like that.
And so we had a couple days together, Mike and I did, and then he had to go back to work on that Monday, and it was scary. I thought, how am I going to manage this?
Right.
How am I going to get to the door because they start you right into therapy at home.
Right.
Like I had a couple different people's, plus the nurse would come, and I was just, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do it? I was scared out of my mind.
But luckily, you know, the therapy at Mary Free Bed got her to the point where, you know, before you can leave, you had to, they check to see how many stairs you have to go up in your house. What do you have to, how do you to navigate to get into your home, that kind of thing.
They had an actual staircase
Right.
there that I had to go up and down with a cane. I had to go up and down and figure out how am I going to do this with a cane and a walker.
Right.
And they literally have you practice that, because I had to be able to get up. Was it 9 stairs?
8 or 9 stairs, yeah, and with a walker and everything else with help, you know. But so we talk about that when you come home.
Yep.
That story of going up the stairs and everything. But all in all, the rehabilitation went well.
The rehab techs at Mary Free Bed rock. They are the best of the best there. I loved all my rehab techs because they were just awesome. The nurses, not so much.
Yeah, a couple of good ones, but there was nothing like when we were at Metro at the hospital.
No.
So, but you know, that's probably the nurses they get, or not the ones that are the top-notch ones in the ER. So.
And we had the other thing too is lots of visitors and lots of support.
Yeah, at that point you could start having more visitors and things, so it was nice.
There's a few times I know that visitors came to see me. I was sleeping. They would just leave me a little note, or you know, or they would just give me a call. My cousins, Martha and Sue, they were awesome. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I never told you thank you for that, and it meant a lot to me. All the times that you guys were there for me, and I've never really said thank you for that. So Martha and Sue, I really love you guys, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, there was a lot of
bunch.
people that came up and helped her and things, and
My children, and
just a lot of things to help you make it through that.
it was difficult. And then my right hand man here, left hand man today, but he was my rock, and I just don't know how we did this. I really don't.
But look at you now, still not perfect physically.
Man, as hell I am.
And still, yeah, some emotional things also, you know, go along with the physical limitations and fatigue and things like that. But she's here and alive and kicking, and so we're thankful for that.
Yep.
So everybody, I think at this point that kind of puts us through the physical therapy. I know it's kind of quick to summarize 30 days, but
Sorry, I was looking for my tissue. Sorry.
but kind of quick for 30 days. But you know, you gotta imagine all of this was a slow progress, kind of the same thing every day, but just with more progress.
Right.
So you know, after those 30 days, we'll talk next week probably on the next video about the progress of going home and what all that entails, and the scariness of that, and all that she was talking about, and kind of the hard part about it. And, I mean, you don't want to miss it. It'll be a good video because she starts remembering more and more things, and starts doing a little bit more with YouTube here and there, and friends and family. So that being said,
Love you guys.
yeah, love you guys, and hope you just have a great day. Like, comment, share this video if you know anybody that's going through anything. Be a good video to share them.
Thanks, guys, so much. Love you.